Hey everyone, it's your host, Dean Buchek on the Magic at Dinner podcast. I want to thank all the people that responded to me via various social media or email sources about the two-part episode with Las Vegas busker, Sean Scott. Sean was absolutely fantastic. It was very, very interesting hearing about his career and how things are going out in Las Vegas. And I appreciate hearing that you guys liked it. So thank you, Sean, because it was an interesting episode. This episode is going to be a little bit different. I've got some book reviews coming up of some restaurant magic stuff that I've seen out there that is not very typical. You may not have seen it around, and so I'm trying to prepare really good reviews of that material. Today's episode is called Rantiosa because I've got some things to say about, some tricks that I've seen over time and some that I've seen recently. And I think at a certain point, you just go, you know what? I think I need to say something. And maybe everyone will disagree, or maybe just one person will agree, or nobody. I don't know. But just a few things. And I hope it at least gets you to think about things. And the one thing that kind of started it, get stuck in my craw, is this trick called Leviosa. It is a incredibly expensive, mechanically automated haunted pack trick, and you would just think that this is like the next big thing for the next 10 years or something like that. And from the first time I saw somebody perform it, I said, this is the dumbest damn thing I have ever seen in my life. But it's a great thing to sell to magicians. Why? Because they can watch themselves perform it. It's not something, if you're palming a card, you can't see the card palmed, and you have to ignore it. But you perform something like Leviosa, you get to watch the trick along with the audience. And I think that has an unusual weight in popularity for performers if they can get a thrill out of watching it happen also. So let's talk about this trick just a little bit, where somebody freely selects a card, puts it in the pack. The magician takes the entire deck of cards and puts it on the ground and starts oddly waving his or her hands over the deck, because clearly it is a timed function when two halves of the pack spit the selected card out as, hey, look, here's your card. And the two halves of the pack end up very neatly, in their own halves. It's not like they're spread all over like a 52 card pickup game, which is really, if it was real looking, that's how it would look, right? And then the cards get gathered up and put on the ground, and then the entire deck floats up to the performer's hand. Okay. Other than the fact that, there's a greatly lacking premise, I guess, in this trick. You could go into all kinds of, I don't know, ghost, and it's a ghost, and it spits the card out and stuff. But let's talk about the fact that this whole thing with this timer that's apparently running, and nobody can time it right so that they can, do a snap and then the card pops out or something like that. It looks really weird and looks very unprofessional, the waving of the hands while you're waiting for the device or whatever it is. I haven't seen the inner machinations of it, but spits this card out. It just looks really dull for one thing. But all these videos, everybody lines up people who are going to scream and shout at the trick, which is pretty much how it works with these videos nowadays. And then there's the levitating of the deck up to the bare hand. I think that's the money shot for magicians, because they get to really watch that happen too. And then hopefully look at the audience and go, oh, look, everybody just thinks this is the greatest thing in the world. I am reminded of a conversation I had with Michael Close 30 years ago, maybe. He was talking about restaurant workers who do invisible thread work, in particular, the floating bill, which was really popular at that time. And he said, I would love one of these performers to ask the last 10 tables they worked at what their guess would be as to how the bill was floating, and then I think they should be prepared to be very disappointed, you so and I would say heartbroken, that, "Oh, yeah, that is how it was floating," that kind of thing. So, I don't think this is a fool, or if you wanna do Haunted Pack, go look up Eugene's version. I don't I don't remember if it was in Strange Ceremonies or what book it was. Eugene used to use a black thread, by the way, no invisible thread, but he worked with a black vest on. Haunted Pack was, a very masterful piece of, magic in his hands. I really would go, look for something like that. And then there are a couple of versions that are impromptu. Jackie Yu has one that's really kind of interesting. It's a little knacky, but if you wanted to do something like that off the cuff, you could do it that way. I just don't think it's a very good trick, and as expensive as it is, a couple $100. Wow. I mean, just I hope you have the extra dough to be spending on something like that. Another trick I saw recently was a trick called vanishing point. It's like 4 or 5 card boxes which are held stacked up in the hand, and then with a sudden jerk of the hand, there's just one pack now. So several of the packs, like 4 of the packs, disappear, and then now there's just one pack. I'm gonna take the cards out. I'm gonna do a trick for you. Okay. Well, okay. Let's talk first. Let's go back to. I'll reference Mike Close a lot in my podcast because I just think he's when it comes to close-up magic, platform magic, and the many essays that he's put out in the magic community over the years. He's just a legend and a genius, in my opinion. In one of the Workers series of books, he talked about conviction, and I think in this case, when you're showing 5 card boxes in your hand stacked up, you have to wonder: are these people that are about to watch this trick convinced that these are 5 card boxes full of 52 cards apiece? If they are convicted or convinced of that, that's a pretty damn good trick then. How did all that, coalesce and disappear or whatever? But I just not sure, that's the case. So talk to my 23-year-old daughter about it. I don't think she's a typical kid of a magician. I didn't, as she was growing up, go, "Hey, watch this trick, watch this trick." I spared her from that. But I said, "Hey, come over here and look at this video." And I showed her the video of Vanishing Point. And I said, I've never shown you any kind of trick that's like this." And I said, "What would be your guess as to how this trick is performed?" And she says, "Well, can I watch it one more time?" Okay, we play it again for her. And she goes, "Well, it looks like those other card boxes are probably empty shells, and they just kind of collapse into the other one somehow." She goes, "I don't know how, but that looks like how it's probably done." And she said, "Is that how it's done?" And I go, "Yeah, probably. I haven't seen it. I'm not going to order it." But I said, "That's probably it." And that's half the battle. If somebody thinks they've guessed it, even if it's wrong, you're kind of out of luck. So if you need a quickie TikTok, Instagrammy kind of thing, and you want to get a few views, maybe Vanishing Point is a good thing. But I'm always thinking about something, a worker, something you can make money with, something you're going to take, into a restaurant with you on an evening as you're trying to entertain tables. And I just think I hate to see more tricks like that, being released, but that seems to be the case. Another trick, I saw this at MagiFest. I think the last 2 MagiFests. I love Ring Flight. Who doesn't? And there's so many versions. And I saw this version with this bell, and the magician made the lady's ring disappear, and then he started ringing the bell, ding, 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 ding. And it turns out that the clacker of the bell is her ring. While I think this is very clever, I just thought, oh my gosh, her ring was clacking against the inside of this metal bell. People's jewelry is very important to them. And I just thought, wow, this is just an idea that was good to have as an idea, but probably shouldn't have been put into an actual product because I'm not going to sit there and go ding, 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 ding with somebody's ring and go, hey, here it is. Hope it wasn't scratched or anything like that because I've done ring flight for 30 years and I have scratched rings before and had to apologize. And I remember one time, one of those little spacers that takes a larger ring and makes it a little bit smaller for somebody to fit on. Uh, when I had enabled the gimmickry of ring flight, I had broken that, and it wasn't an expensive fix. The lady said, "Oh, don't worry, it's okay. I was going to take it in to get it cleaned anyway." But wow, you just have to be careful with your ring flight apparatus because something really bad can happen to someone's personal jewelry. And I just didn't think this ringing bell ring flight was a very good idea. I was thinking about tricks that, much like Leviosa and the deck floating up into one's hand, where the magician gets to watch the magic too. What are other tricks that kind of favor that kind of popularity too? And three fly came to mind, which magically is a tremendous trick. And I remember seeing early versions of it decades ago from Chris Kenner when he lived in Indianapolis. And as a magician and a magic geek, and it just was so beautiful and such a great trick. But is it a great trick for your audiences? And I'm not even gonna answer that. I just want you to think about it. Did Three Fly become popular because it was a great trick or because magicians liked watching themselves perform it in the mirror? I've never performed it for anyone, but I've performed it in the mirror hundreds of times. It's cool, right? I mean, it is awesome just to watch coins, go back and forth, from hand to hand. So I'm not saying don't perform Three Fly, but ask yourself why you like it and make sure the version you do or the way you present it is something that the audience is going to appreciate in some way. I see Three Fly as one of those really, really amazing pieces of magic that audiences don't always know how to respond to. And maybe that's how maybe that's how it's going to be. It's no less amazing that way, but sometimes audiences just don't know how to respond to a trick. Color changes are another one where sometimes it seems like every third or fourth TikTok that I see is somebody putting their hand in front of a pack and changing a card from the eight of clubs into the four of hearts or something like that. If you could change the card with magic, think about it, you really wouldn't need to cover it up so much, like with your whole hand. Of all the versions I see, a lot of them are just not only covering up the card, but covering it up for maybe a second, which is a long time. But some of them are, almost effortless, and the person barely seems to put their hand in front of the deck. But still, every time I see a color change, I'm like, what's the premise here? If you're thinking of things in David Regal terms, why am I doing this? Is this just some eye candy? Which, well, there's some performers that can get away with eye candy. I cannot. I have to have some kind of meaning or some simple explanation or a story that goes along with what I'm doing. But it is something to think about. If you could change a card with magic, would you need to cover it up so much? The dancing cane is another one. Who has not really loved watching dancing cane performances, over the years, whether in person or on TV or television special? I mean, it's very pretty. But to me, it's very pretty for 10 seconds. While the magician's going to go on for a minute and a half, 2 minutes, sometimes excruciatingly longer. Are they doing that because it's really fun to perform? And while they're performing and swinging their hands around the stage, that they're seeing the cane kind of work its way around them. And I think it would be very easy to get caught up in that. So I would challenge anyone performing a dancing cane, however many seconds or minutes you're doing it, does it need to be that long? Has the audience gotten their appreciation of it in the first 10 to 15 seconds? And then maybe it's time to wrap it up or do something interesting with the cane, at that point. Tricks that require you to all of a sudden turn left or right. You start out, you're performing and you've engaged your audience, you are you're looking straight at them, and then all of a sudden you have to wrench your body 90 degrees to the